Hi there, Mr. Sutton here with the IM379 Part 2 homework solutions on cosine and sine.
For this problem, we're trying to figure out the sine of negative pi over 3. Let's start by converting this into degrees. I just think a little bit easier in degrees. So if we divide, let's see, 180 divided by 3 is 60, so this is negative 60 degrees. And negative 60 degrees, just thinking in terms of where that is, that's down here in the fourth quadrant. So just thinking about reference angles, we are 60 degrees away from the closest x-axis angle. So our reference angle is 60. Sine, which is the y value of the angle, is going to be negative down here below the x-axis. So I can rewrite this then as negative sine of 60. And that's just going to end up being a negative radical 3 over 2. To find the cosine of 3 pi over 4, let's start by converting this into degrees. 180 divided by 4 is 45, times 3 is 135 degrees. 135, that's in quadrant 2, kind of in the middle here. So in terms of reference angles, we are 45 degrees away from the closest x-axis angle, 180 minus 135. And cosine, which is the x values, is negative over here to the left of the y-axis. So then I can rewrite this as negative cosine of 45. Since cosine of 45 is root 2 over 2, this is then going to be negative radical 2 over 2. For this problem, we're trying to find the cosine of 210. That is over here in the third quadrant. So in terms of reference angles, we are 210 minus 180, 30 degrees away from the closest x-axis. And cosine, the x values, is negative over here to the left of the y-axis. So this then can be written as negative cosine of 30 degrees. Cosine of 30 is radical 2 over 2, so this is negative radical 2 over 2. On this problem, we want the sine of 150 degrees. 150 is over here in quadrant 2. Reference angle, we are 30 degrees away from the closest x-axis angle of 180. Sine, which is the y values, that's going to be positive above the x-axis here. So rewriting this with a reference angle, I can write this as positive sine of 30 degrees. Which is just going to be one of our special angles. That's going to be 1/2. To figure out the cosine of negative 240, let me first add 360 so that I know what that is as a positive angle. So this is really going to be cosine of 120, and that is somewhere in quadrant 2, right about here. Now in terms of reference angles, we are 180 minus 120, 60 degrees away from the closest x-axis angle. And then cosine is negative over here to the left of the y-axis, so I can write this as negative cosine of 60 degrees. Since cosine of 60 is one of our special values, it's 1/2, this then is going to be negative 1/2. To figure out the sine of negative 135, let's start by seeing what this is as a positive angle, because I'm having trouble kind of visualizing where this is going to fall in the unit circle. So if I add 360 to this, that's going to be positive 225 that I'm taking the sine of. And that, I know, is smack dab in the middle of quadrant 3 right here. So the reference angle on that one, we are 45 degrees from the closest x-axis angle of 180. 225 minus 180 gives us that. Sine, which is the y value of the angle, that's got to be negative below the x-axis here. So this then can be written as negative sine of 45 degrees. Sine of 45 is radical 2 over 2, so this is negative root 2 over 2. On this problem, we're trying to figure out the cosine of negative 30. So that's down here in quadrant 4. As a reference angle, we are 30 degrees away from the closest x-axis angle. And then cosine itself, the x value of the angle, that is positive to the right of the y-axis here. So I can rewrite this as positive cosine of 30, which is one of our special values. That's going to be radical 3 over 2. For this problem, I want cosine of negative 4 pi over 3. Let me convert this to degrees. 180 divided by 3 is 60, times negative 4 is negative 240 degrees. And I'm not really sure where that is, so let me add 360. That gives me cosine of 120 degrees. Now that's here in quadrant 2. Reference angle, we are 60 degrees away from that 180 line. 180 minus 120 gives us 60. Cosine, which is the x values, is going to be negative to the left of the y-axis over here. So this is then negative cosine of 60. Cosine of 60 is the special value 1/2. So this is going to be negative 1/2. On this problem, we're trying to get the cosine of 2 pi over 3. Let's convert that to degrees first. 180 divided by 3 is 60, times 2 gives us 120 degrees, which is over here in quadrant 2. Reference angle on that, I'm going to be 60 degrees away from this 180 x-axis angle. And then cosine, the x value of the angle, that is negative to the left of the y-axis here. So I can rewrite this as negative cosine of 60. Cosine of 60 is one of our special values. That's 1/2. So this then is going to be negative 1/2. For this problem, we're trying to get sine of 11 pi over 6. Let's convert that to degrees first. 180 divided by 6 is 30, times 11 is 330. That's over here in quadrant 4. And the reference angle, 330 degrees, is 30 degrees away from the nearest x-axis angle of 360, 360 minus 330. Sine itself, that's the y value of the angle. That's going to be negative down here because we're below the x-axis. So this can be rewritten then as negative sine of 30 degrees. Now sine of 30 is a special value. That's 1/2. So this is going to be negative 1/2. On this one, we're trying to take sine of negative 7 pi over 6. But what is this in degrees? So 180 divided by 6 is 30, times negative 7 is negative 210 degrees. And then if I add 360 to that, because I'm not really sure where negative 210 is, that's going to be positive 150 degrees. Now I know where that is. That's in quadrant 2, right about here. The reference angle there, we are 30 degrees away from the 180 line on the x-axis. And sine is going to be positive because we are above the x-axis, and y values are positive above the x-axis. So I can rewrite this then as sine of 30, positive that. And I know that this is the special value 1/2.